Greetings, sending all some warm, positive vibrations. This is Body-Culinary checking in and sending a shout out to all of my early risers. So, wanted to check in at the start of the early day just for some relaxation, which is really, really critical. Relaxation over here in this little corner is a nutrient, a health product, a beauty product. And so, this is a time where I'm just noticing intuitively um, a draw to, as I've done before, to take everything off and just to sit with myself. So, if you haven't been to the channel before, welcome. Over here, I like to embrace health as my number one beauty product, which is a state of being. Health lends to relaxation, and we're all at our most beautiful when we are healthy. So if you haven't been to the channel before, this is Body-Culinary. On this channel, I share my journey of radical self-acceptance, someone with very fine, kinky, cottony, Afro-textured hair. I'm a natural-born woman, and I like to embrace um, the body parts that I was divinely assigned with. We're not limited by any means to just our body parts, um, but all are welcome here. I also share encouragement to start a garden for so many different reasons. It's so therapeutic. I also encourage you to start, pick up, reactivate, cultivate a personal movement practice. Some people call it exercise. I like to say vigorous, joyous movement, as well as I like to encourage peaceful consumption. Peaceful consumption patterns, first of all, to your own brain, your body, your arteries, your digestive system, your peace of mind, your mood, and eating for longevity, vitality, your mood, and then beauty, which is health. So those are the types of things that I share on this channel. And today I want to check in and just explore relaxation uh, in contrast to anxiety. And there's a lot of, there's quite an environment, I think, that triggers a lot of anxiety. And I don't know, although I can embrace the duality, I can appreciate, as I've said before, I can appreciate the artistic expression. And as someone that enjoys femininity, I really enjoy the draw of playing and grooming and scents and flowers. How I've experienced the relaxation that can come sometimes, quite often, and just sitting with yourself, either doing mirror work or just sitting on the throne, right? The mental, emotional, your state of being, the throne of your own existence. How we popped out onto this 3D plane with all of our organs intact. And so I question and I make an effort to be protective of my peace in an environment where so many different messages are being deposited one way through the screens that at some point, even if you're living out in the bush, at some point you may have to likely interact with others on, at some point, even on the internet, because that's the global climate that we're in. However, I observe that we are affected in a way that's not tangible. We're affected our emotional, our mental. And spirituality to me is very practical. You can't not be a spirit because we are all something for which words can't even fully contain and express. We're something, we were something, our essence was something before we animated these human suits, and at some point we will all lay down these human suits. So I don't see how you could not be spiritual. If anything, perhaps we're not in alignment. But in any event, I notice that we are deeply affected. And anything that I say is not the truth, you're welcome to leave it right here. You're also welcome to comment at any point respectfully in the comment section. I don't have the only perspective. I'm just one woman sharing my experience. So I note that we are affected by all the one-way communications and a lot of times what I call triggeration, we are triggered to anxiety and fear. And these triggers drive a lot of our behavior. They drive a lot of our mindless consumption. So on this channel, I invite you, there's a section of videos on this channel called mini medis, relaxation. Some people say meditation. I like to think in the very practical terms, because I find practical things, our mind doesn't have as much resistance, right? We have so many packages and there's so much scamming. There's so much connotations that go with relaxation. There's cults, there's all this other stuff. I like to keep it real simple. Simple, I find, is very, very sustainable. So I like to check in when you relax, your mind can be more open. You can notice more things, right? Some of the intangibles you can notice perhaps and create space to allow yourself to process emotional pain, emotional discomfort, thoughts, right? The mental processing of this brain, part of it is thoughts of things that make us very fearful. And so we may not notice that there's such a tidal wave, a constant tidal wave of things coming at us that are affecting our psyche. And as someone, if you don't know already on this channel, I am a professional chef and also a personal trainer for many years. I've worked in the industry. I love gardening and growing. And so I'm constantly checking in and noticing the patterns. And for many, many years, what drives our mindless consumption patterns. And this is not just limited to the food that we're eating, although most clients will come initially, business executives, moms, dads, people that have gotten health diagnoses. People usually just say, give me a diet and give me some exercises. But I have observed in many years that there are some patterns. There are some distinct patterns in people that have successes and results in shifting their paradigms, their patterns, and resulting in their behaviors, because the behaviors are just a symptom of how we are processing stress and of what is going on cyclically. I do have a list, and habitually in our own mind of thought. So I like to think and communicate in a way that's very, very practical. I notice that quite often we're more anxious than we would care to admit. And so if we could perhaps find ways to work with ourselves, I don't know if we want to say trick ourselves, but I would say work with ourselves so that we have space, so we can have a noticing, so that we can cultivate an awareness. Because I have observed a lot of times we're just not even aware. And so although it can feel good to have all this recreational eating on all these beautiful clothes and makeup palettes, can you check in and notice when you are relaxed? And so this early day, I was noticing, and yesterday, I haven't felt it in a while, but and I don't wear much. I may put on some earrings. None of it is bad or wrong. If you like makeup and jewelry, none of that is bad or wrong. First, if we don't need one more thing to make ourselves feel guilty about or shame about or any more boxes. Last thing folks need, last thing Afro women need is one more to box ourselves in. I was noticing though yesterday the inclination after I did my shower medi or relaxation. I just noticed I had little pair of earrings on. I just felt to take them off, and I was just massaging my face. I'm big on massage, self massage, and I just felt like so relaxed. I had rinsed my scalp, and I just rinsed my hair again. And so I have very thin, fine hair, so I have to be careful because the water is so therapeutic. I can wind up stripping this very thin hair. So more, this fine hair, more on that later. But I noticed that the water, I could feel, so if you make space, I notice my facial expressions. It's like you're tuning in. I can listen to myself. I observe myself go, right? Are you noticing? Can you notice? Because we don't see ourselves. Can you notice if you have a grimace on your face? If you have frown lines, if your jaws are clenched, if your shoulders are up, if your stomach is tight? Quite often we won't notice that. We may not even notice our fixation on a lot of the quote unquote negativity or the drama, even in some of these newer platforms, or the tendency to drag each other how it doesn't have a bottom line in our own life, even if they're teachable moments. It's like you could spend endless hours, I would even say a lifetime, on these screens. And so when you sit in quiet, there's so much more of an awareness, there's so much more of a noticing, right? That new things, new information will pop up on your radar. But usually it's not glamorous, it's not encouraged. You're not going to get a high five on it. However, some of those intangibles I think can go a long way to nourish us, to comfort us, to soothe us in a way that doesn't cost you any money. You don't have to put yourself in harm's way in terms of being scammed or manipulated by some religious or pseudo-religious or pseudo-spiritual figure. It's something that you have direct access to, right? What I like to call your divine onboard innate intelligence. Divine in terms of there's a sense, there's an intelligence that each and every human being, all creatures to varying degrees, that we are all endowed with at birth, that needs no middleman, needs no middlewoman. It doesn't need an outfit. It doesn't need anything. It just is. It just is. And it is communicating. It is animated. It is communicating all the time. Actually, there are multiple intelligences that are communicating all the time. So to bring this back, I notice in just taking off my earrings, taking a shower. Sometimes if I feel kind of stressed, I'm the type of person that may take several. But more so than a shower, it's soothing my body with the temperature, right? And the water. It is very, very therapeutic, right? Somebody might say, why would you take that many? It's just not about the shower per se, right? Again, we're thinking so superficially. It's finding ways to soothe yourself and care for yourself. I think it's so interesting that we are enticed to buy, not that they're wrong, but that we will buy these expensive $200 perfumes. $200 perfumes. Yet we may not be dialed in to our natural scent and what our own body odor or scent is communicating. If it's more pungent, if you've been eating more garlic and onions, if you're on your menstrual cycle, if you're a woman, if you're tuned into your body's scent, if you're vigorously exercising, if you're tuned into your body's scent, it's very subtle. If you're not moving and if you're stagnant, your elimination, there's constant communications. However, we have all of these different narratives perfectly scripted to be very effective at depositing a narrative and messages and instructions in a matter of seconds, usually within 20 to 60 seconds of a commercial. And I would even say it kind of scrambles, right, or interrupts the direct communication that is coming from inside. So when I just notice myself just very naturally say, and I was like, I just caught that, right? How many times during the day are you noticing yourself exhale and relax and your tone of voice? This is one of the reasons why I absolutely adore the wee hours of the early day, because you can hear, you can more tune into your divine onboard innate intelligence. And it's one of the reasons why I think it can be so beneficial to remove a lot of the distraction. And so on one of the videos that's going to be uploaded a little later today on the Patreon, over on the Patreon, I'm going to be parking more of the content around, I've called it food shadow work before, but it's bigger than just food, right? Because food expands beyond fruits and vegetables and quote unquote junk food, right? Everything that we're consuming is a form of nourishment, and it's nourishing something, a mind state. A lot of times, a lot of the recreational eating isn't nourishing our bodies physically, but the opioids that they produce, there's nothing that we do without a reason, nothing. So, in making space and creating quiet, you can hear this is so beneficial because it's something that you can administer for yourself. And sometimes I just sit in quiet, and sometimes I don't go, greetings, I don't go online as much, right? To just sit in the quiet. I don't think everything needs to be expressed online or in social media or in a climate of strangers, so that your quiet and your relaxation process is up and out in the open in a very volatile environment where humans in our insecurities and in our traumas, there's like, I notice there's a tendency, and it seems to have become habitual for us to, which is interesting. We got so much stuff going on with our own selves, our own being, things that we haven't processed. Yet we'll look on the screen and we'll look at other human beings and we'll be triggered to, in a very insensitive way, to project onto others, or sometimes there's a tone of viciousness or callousness to other people. I don't know that many of us even consider if this comes at an energetic cost to ourselves. I don't know that we're getting really mostly teachable moments, because it seems that there's an energy of a glutting or a satisfaction that we get out of inflicting onto others, or verbally bashing, or being verbally abusive to others. There's a Most of us, many of us don't ask questions because again, it's online. It's one way. It's a form of communication that's one way. So it's not like you're necessarily going to get a response. If you do, it's not usually going to be a well thought out response. Perhaps there are some suggestions. So I think we can go a long way in realizing how this new mode of communication, it can be beneficial if we are very intentional about it. So it says a lot for us. Relaxation says a lot. And are we noticing whether or not we're relaxed, or if we're extremely triggered, right? And in a state, from a state of triggeration, as I'll call it, could it be perhaps things that we're not dealing with in terms of not processing emotions and unfinished business within ourselves? And could perhaps this state of being keep us looping, keep us underdeveloped, keep us in a state where we're not able to critically think or be objective about our choices and things that are not good for us, that don't affect our bottom line, whether that's food, whether that's being attracted to food that's going to break your skin out, being attracted to indiscriminate use of your reproductive organs, which will end up in emotional and perhaps physical dis-ease, right? And conditions, right? Do we ever in our quiet moments um, observe our drawer, almost hypnotic drawer? Is it a drawer, or is it we're looking to get energy from something? We're looking to make ourselves feel better. However, that does not mean that we're seeking the energy from outside of ourselves. Whereas in processing a lot of what's going on with us, or things that haven't been allowed to come to the surface, instead of seeking outside energy or outside fuel, that there's a fuel and an energy that doesn't come from food or people. We're not tapping into our ability to be able to generate energy for ourselves, so that we can come more whole and we can perhaps function more interdependently, if this makes sense. I feel like I'm communicating in the most practical sense. So I'm not going to stay on too long today, but I just wanted to check in. Um, Again, this channel is Body Culinary. There are videos. There's a puppet series on this channel called Sister Butterfly and Sister Monkey Learn to Eat Better. That is young people friendly. There are some whole living foods jam sessions. I do encourage peaceful consumption, which is based around fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, fresh ground spices, and herbs. However, I'm not attached to what labels people call themselves or label I call myself. It's a distinction because that's what I prefer. But I've eaten every junk food, I've eaten all kinds of flesh. Everyone, you will have to find your own sweet spot. It's you're in your own process, your hair, your food, your makeup. But none of this stuff I find is touching really in a sustainable way the inside, because that feeling of, I don't find that's as sustainable with makeup. And again, I get it, but there's a peace, there's a satisfaction um, that I think there's something for us to experience that can come from the inside that's not necessarily dependent on other people. So I encourage you to be proactive in creating positive support for yourself, to find some positive accountability tools, and to be mindful of your circle of influence, the people, whether it's virtually or in person, without demonizing and making other people wrong. Because, catch, a lot of the people that we're complaining about in our lives, we have chosen them. We have chosen, whether in ignorance or not. But when you sit in quiet, your own accountability and your own responsibility, this stuff can come up to the surface when we can explore these things we've been resistant about and fighting about, the things we're holding on to that are not beneficial. Perhaps we'll have more space to grieve the loss of perhaps things we didn't get in childhood. We can make so much more mental, emotional space in quiet and removing distractions. So that's where this particular style of hair, which is not, this is just what the hair does, right? And not twisting it, not being preoccupied with it, and taking all the fixation on food, taking a lot of these different things off the table. It creates so much space. So today on the Patreon at 12 noon, I'm going to be exploring this in another level, right? In another way, taking a lot off the table, because a lot of my practice, although it is nutrition and vigorous joyous movement, aka exercise, there's something at the root of all of our behaviors. I like to call it root work. Modern day root work, getting to the root of our self-sabotaging behaviors and getting to the root of what's going to flip the switch to motivate us to get into action around the things that we say we value, our core values. And so I'm going to move forward with this. I heard the other day that something that showed up on my radar. It was something relating to the ways of the samurai, right? You can look them up, the ways of the samurai. And something that this gentleman said was not to rely on the help of Buddha or the gods. Do not rely on the help of Buddha or the gods. I thought that was really interesting. And he went on to explain, and I'm sure I got my own interpretation, that although Buddha and or God or the gods are there, right? We're not to rely on them for help. So that really made me think of something as an Afro person that was raised in the church. Our conditioning and our culture has been to beg and plead for mercy, to beg and plead for assistance. And I've had this conversation with my mother over the years, for all the cultural in the Black church, the consecration fast and the 6 o'clock prayer, the 8 o'clock prayer service, then the afternoon service, and constant so much time spent at in church. I didn't notice a lot of results in terms of common sense, the self-harm, lack of communication skills. I didn't notice a lot of results overwhelmingly as a cultural collective from the church. And I used to question this from my mom. And so I thought that was such a a contrast to being raised to ask and plead for help. And I also had a spiritual auntie later in later years that said it's one thing to ask, it's another thing to receive. And it was also said to me, you're still praying for things that God, so called, gave you the answer and the instruction to, but you never follow through on the instruction. So it's another one of the reasons why I really embrace Nature's Church. So I invite you to, if you find some value, I invite you to replay this perhaps while you're doing one of three things: cutting vegetables, while you have out your movement practice or your exercise, not, or while you grab a pile of clothes or papers to declutter in an effort to create a positive support for yourself, right? Something that can really get you into action around what you say is important to you. So I hope you make a positive use of this channel. Feel free to share it with someone that could benefit. Subscribe, um, like, check out the Patreon page. Also, the waste beads, I did put the link there for the guide to whole living foods in the hood with menus to fit your budget. The waste beads that I'm doing and the waste awareness training, although waste beads are for adornment, they're much more than adornment. So it's a part of the awareness of your consumption pattern. So those are custom. I'm not mass producing them. So they're made very, very, they're crafted very intentionally, from the colors. Um, all of that is very intentional. I like to be very intentional. Let's see what else. There's Healthy Eating for Men. That webinar is on body-culinary.com. Natural Beauty Don't No Products. All the food that I've been putting on my face as well as eating that cleared up my acne. It's fruits and vegetables as a lifestyle. So you're welcome to avail yourself of those resources. Body Culinary on Instagram, and Kwasa with a K, Peaceful Eating like Full Belly, on TikTok. So I'm inviting you to create a great day on purpose just because you said so. Support the channel, and I will see you soon.